Hello and welcome to the screencast version of our presentation on our cooperative, the Cooperativa de Serveis Lingüístics de Barcelona. This presentation was originally given on July 26th of this year, 2014, in Barcelona, and its primary aim is to explain a bit more about our cooperative and to attract new members into the fold. As I said, I'm Neil McMillan, I'm the president. Also present at the original meeting were Alan Ritchie, the Vice President, and the Auditor Irene Almazan Garcia. And not present was the Secretary George Chilton. I think we can see here right now. George is currently based in Medellin in Colombia, so for that reason he wasn't there. But on the presentation we only had a picture of George because you could see the rest of us, so I'll just show you the rest of us right now. And also a quick sneak peek at our web page, which I'll be showing you more of later on. So there I am, Neil McMillan, that's Irene, and down here is Alan. George did actually appear in the presentation on Skype. We placed him in a plastic sort of tube, trying to imitate the talking heads that you find in the series Futurama. Which was quite funny, but we're not going to replicate that in this screencast, unfortunately. So I'll do all the talking for George, which I'm sure he'll be delighted about. To start off with then are our objectives. These objectives are written in our official statutes. So, we aim to associate physical and juridical persons meaning organisations or companies, okay, and just to clarify, George, Alan and myself are all language teachers and teacher trainers. We also do a bit of writing, and Irene is a translator specialised in technical marine translations. As we know, to exercise your activity on your own account is quite an ambiguous statement. Legally speaking, all the members of the cooperative are supposed to be autonomos or freelancers. Well, I should say not all, but the majority, and I'll go into that a bit later on as to what makes up the constitution of the cooperative. This slide obviously focuses on services, and by definition in Catalan law we are a services cooperative. That is the basis of what we do. The other types of cooperative that you'll find in Catalonia include work cooperatives, that is to say a cooperative which gave full employment to all its members. That's possibly a future goal for us, but at the moment we are an association of freelancers. And that is how we see the cooperative being commercially successful, in that we don't just provide services to our members, but of course we hope to sell those services to third parties to commercialise them as much as possible and thereby meet our objective of improving the economic conditions of our members. So, who can be a member? Pretty much anyone, as long as they agree with our objectives. We can see there a note about subject to approval. To join our cooperative you do need to pass an interview, and we like to look at your CV and also to examine your motivation for joining us. As I mentioned, we are an association of freelancers, and freelance members or autonomo members will participate fully in the cooperative. Anyone who is not autonomo can be a collaborating member or a soci colaborador. The distinction between a soci colaborador and an autonomo would be that a soci colaborador technically cannot contribute to meeting the objectives of the cooperative. However, we feel that they can. It's just that they couldn't be paid directly in the same way as an autonomo member. The constitution of the co-op is in favour of autonomo members, which is to say that collaborators cannot own more than 45% of the social capital. So autonomous members are supposed to own the bulk of social capital in the cooperative. To join us, and maybe this is being a bit preemptive because you don't really know what we're about yet, but once you know that, then if you were to join, you would tell us about yourself, both professionally and in terms of your motivation to join us. We would interview you. This is the first time you'll see the phrase Executive Council. George, Alan and I, as President, Vice President and Secretary, at the moment we form the Executive Council of the Cooperative. You would then have to read our statutes. I've mentioned the objectives from the statutes. It's a much bigger document. And the internal regulation, which is a document which is currently in draft form in Constitution, which really governs the way that we run our everyday affairs inside the cooperative. If you were to join for probably September this year, you would be involved in finalising and voting on that internal regulation. And there's a financial obligation. We set it quite low, we feel, at €200 minimum investment into the social capital. Plus, of course, there's a fee, I think, for registration, which is about €30 on top of that. But that basically buys you a share of the cooperative. And then everyone in the cooperative is also obliged to pay a monthly subscription fee, currently set at €20 a month, plus IVA, or sales tax. And that covers the basic services that are available within the cooperative, which I will outline in a moment. Just to say that we were advised as a services cooperative to charge a much higher fee for a minimum investment of something between €500 and €1,000. However, these fees were typical of service cooperatives such as transport collectives, where there's a lot more money flying around. We felt that this investment represents a serious investment for most teachers and translators without being prohibitively big. If you joined us, what kind of organisation would you be joining? Well, this is how I viewed our organigram, and it is flat as possible. I've mentioned the Executive Council. The Executive Council perhaps drive the work of the cooperative, but have no authority as such over anyone else in the cooperative. The structure is as flat as you can get in a modern organisation. That is to say, no matter how much you invest, if you only invest the minimum or you invest a further voluntary contribution, you have one voice and one vote in the cooperative. No one member can have a controlling stake in the cooperative. In fact, you're limited to 30% maximum portion of the social capital. And finally, the General Assembly, which is all the members of the cooperative, would oversee and perform checks on the work of the Executive Council. So if we were to look at that flat line perhaps from above, it might look a little bit like this, which is to say, in the centre here we'd have the Executive Council, with the President, Vice President and the Secretary. Monitoring the Executive Council in terms of finances is the auditor, who is Irene, who isn't strictly part of the Executive Council, but the Executive Council can't really do anything with any of the cooperative money without that first being approved by the auditor. Surrounding all that, we would have the General Assembly, who would meet at least once a year, but who get the chance to vote on all the major decisions of the cooperative. If there were to be any changes in the internal regulation, in the statutes, any changes to the nature of the cooperative, then everyone has the chance to vote on that. Also to hold the Executive Council to account if they are not performing their duties. If we take a step further back, delimiting all our activity, of course, are the laws applying to cooperatives in Catalonia and all the legal requirements in terms of tax, etc. As you probably know, in Spain this can be quite limiting. We would really like to punch a few holes in this kind of outer circle, but we are a legally registered cooperative, and as such we are bound to follow the laws of the land.